Hey folks, Lemonade here, and this is probably the review that I'm most excited about, at least as of late. XTEN sent me all of their mouse pads, but we're focusing on their hard pads today, the hard and G-cloth pads. We're going to get into the nitty-gritty, the details. I'll tell you a little bit about them, but I cannot wait for you to see these, so let's get into it. All right, folks, we got a lot of material to cover here today, so we're going to move quick, but I want to be pretty thorough here because these are pretty special pads. Again, I did receive these from XTEN free of charge. That does not affect my opinion on these pads, and we'll talk about that towards the end of the video. First, let's get the specs out of the way. All right, so starting with the G-cloth here, comes in at 340 by 280 by 2 millimeters. It is $70 from the conversion from yen to US dollars. So $70 for this pad, 340 by 280 by 2 millimeters. The hard speed pad is again 340 by 280, but it is 4 millimeters thick, and this one actually goes for $50 on their website. Again, we will get into the pricing towards the end of the video. Some similarities of the pads. Let's knock these out. These are both made in Japan. So these are made in Japan pads, similar to Artisan. These are the only other pads that I'm aware of that are. They only can make a couple hundred a week total of their entire series of pads. Some of the pads, like the G-cloth here, actually take quite a bit longer because of its unique surface. The surfaces and the company started by working with Japanese esports players and Japanese manufacturing partners to get these surfaces, the look, feel, and the surface performance down. They actually prefer a non-stitched edge for the look that they wanted. I did reach out to the manufacturer for some of this because I was curious myself on why they decided to get into the space and why they decided to make the pads the way they did. They do have a unique blade technique that is designed to reduce any possible fraying on the pads, and I have not experienced any. They are hard surfaces, so you shouldn't, but just to note, I do wear a sleeve with them. Yeah, no fraying on these at all. They're as brand new as the day I got them. The company started out, actually, funny enough, making electronic parts, lamination, adhesives. That's kind of their bread and butter. And they wanted to get into mouse pads because they had a kind of shared excitement for esports. So it was a good fit for them, as they say. Some little history on the company itself. Similarities with the pads. The packaging, first of all, is amazing. You saw a little bit of that in the opening there. This is the best packaging I've ever seen on any mouse pad, or frankly, any product ever. They have unique art on them that just looks freaking awesome. I mean, the level of detail, I'll show you this on the website later. They look like, I mean, they're vinyl sleeves, essentially. They're good looking black pads. They are all black. Unfortunately, there's no designs on these pads or any of their pads, but they feel exceptional. Their quality is the best in my collection, bar none. They are, again, simple black pads, but it's just something about the feel and the fit and finish of these. It sets them worlds apart. Again, similarities. Bad humidity resistance. It's a hard pad, so any hard style surface, whether it's a Sky pad, my Vance or Ace pad, these pads, recommend if you're going to get a hard surface, wear a sleeve. Again, non-stitch edges, not a problem. Just wear a sleeve with it. I don't snag on these at all, and I've had no issues with the edges themselves. The base is a synthetic rubber, but it holds extremely well. It has this kind of felt like texture to it, but it holds extremely well. These do not move off your desk without any amount of force. That's pretty much as I could push the pads. They stick like glue, but they come off very easily. All right, let's kind of focus in on each pad, and I wanted to do them both in the same video because they're both hard pads. One of them being a speed pad, one of them being a kind of balanced pad as they describe it on their website. So let's start off with the G-cloth. What makes it different? So this is their G-cloth balanced pad. I'm going to bring this up real close because you can actually see the kind of underlayer right there, though. So the surface material kind of comes almost to the edge, and then there's a few millimeters where you can see the kind of foam core there, and that's the kind of texture. Very unique It's actually a glass fiber fabric. Again, this is the most labor-intensive pad that they make, and it is a glass fiber fabric underneath, but it is coated with a fluoroplastic coating on top. Super unique, again, like nothing I've ever felt. And it's not adhesive, acid resistant, low friction, water and oil repellent. Apparently it is also strong enough to be used for sliding rocket parts. That's what was described on the website, but it's also safe for food sanitation. Haven't tested those claims. This is a really high quality material from my use. There is something to note though. X and Y difference, there is some. The horizontal glide is definitely a little bit more controlled. You can feel a little bit more tug, but the vertical, you can feel a little bit more speed. So this is almost like the Hayate Ku by Artisan. Something to get used to. It's not unplayable, and this is the first pad I've had with an X and Y difference, but it is something to note if you're looking at the G-Cloth. This pad actually does feel more planted like a regular pad because of the kind of friction and control that's built within the surface. It's kind of sinking into the surface, which is crazy to think about because again, it's only 2 millimeters thick, or thin, I should say at this point. Now, XTEN does say that this is a similar speed to the hard pad, but has better stopping power. I do agree with that description, 100%. You do have a good amount of dynamic friction. You can feel a little bit of tug, but it moves very quickly. It's a very smooth, glidey surface. But you have that nice level of stopping power. It's really quite well described as a balanced pad. Now, mouse skates do differ on this a little bit. The fastest glide on this particular pad are glass feet. So I have the Razer Rochi with super glides. Just slides right off. I have to actually catch the mouse pad. And then every other form of mouse feet, whether it be a 4-corner design, 2 large feet, or kind of a hybrid foot setup like on the Viper V2 Pro here, any of those are nearly identical when I slid them across this pad over several times. XTEN, they don't recommend glass feet, mainly for the sake that it feels uncontrolled and it's a bit fast, and I do agree with that. They may be to your preference, but just to know that's not the recommendation to use glass feet on either one of these surfaces. There is also possible wear concerns over long periods of time. Okay, now we have the hard speed pad here. Very similar, obviously, in look here, but I'll show you the kind of textural differences here in the light. You can actually see in the light and how it hits the surface. You can see kind of some lines running across the surface, horizontal lines kind of going back and forth. And they kind of look like indentations. They are not. That is actually a scoring pattern that they put on so that the adhesive sticks properly to this particular surface. The surface is a polypropylene material, essentially a plastic material, but they did add, and this is where the level of control is actually a little bit unique on this, they did add 0.15 millimeter micro bumps all across the surface. So if you run your fingers across this, you can feel a bit of texture on there. So they added those, plus they doubled the thickness of the core to 4 millimeters to give it a bit more control. And we'll get into some comparisons, but there is a good level of control with this speed pad. The material itself has been tested, likewise with the G-Cloth, over many millions of sliding tests by them, and there has been no sign of wear. In the several weeks, almost 3 weeks I've had these pads, I have not had any sign of wear at all. The X and Y is completely uniform on this particular pad. In terms of mouse skates, what's faster or what's slower, the fastest speed is going to be your hybrid. So this kind of setup, if you have a similar mouse to the Viper V2 Pro, these skates are the fastest on it. Then the 4-corner design, then the 2 big feet, so the 2 big fat PTF feet, and then the slowest is actually surprisingly the glass skates. So it's a stark difference there. You would think that this would work out well, but see, there's quite a bit of stopping power here on the glass skates versus something like the Viper that would just slide right off. So I like to show this because everyone has different mice, different feet, and it will perform differently depending on what kind of skate you're using. This is the fastest speed pad that they offer, but it has a good level of control. It does feel though like you're floating on the surface a bit, and that's probably due to those micro bumps, and that's where you do get that speed. Now, let me show you the website. We're kind of gonna go over it quickly. All right, folks, now we are on XTEN's website here. I mean, this is just best website, the coolest freaking website I've ever seen, and it's a mousepad company, which is crazy. You have Japanese English translation here on the side, some cool graphics and trailers. You have all the details of all their pads. You can kind of dive into each individual one, and they have a little bit of a bio of their artist that works on the cover art. And you can see here some really high resolution shots of the surfaces themselves. This is the hard speed pad, and you can clearly see those kind of micro dots all along this surface. And then the kind of texture of, again, of the G cloth, and this is kind of the breakdown of their technology. So surface, foam core, and the base itself, the synthetic rubber base. They do have a partnership with Detonation Gaming, which is a Japanese esports team that they work closely with in designing these pads and supporting. Now, performance in-game. They say on their website these are specifically designed for MOBAs and FPS. I do agree. These are more in the size range of someone with a higher sense. I do play on a 34, pretty much a 35 centimeter, and I feel like I have enough room. I do have to move the mouse pads a bit high on my desk and kind of in this position to have that ample room for vertical and horizontal tracking, but they do work up to about 35 centimeters. I haven't tested them at a lower sense. Now, while I've been playing Apex, Battlefield, and Shatterline, highly recommend Shatterline, by the way. Go check it out. It's free on Steam. Not sponsored. There is a little bit of a kind of getting used to period, but really, they're not that bad. I've performed really well on Apex, Battlefield, and Shatterline. These probably, I'd have to say, I mean, I kind of go between both of them. They really are probably my favorite pads in my setup. I said that about the Vancer Ace, but having went back to these again, there's something about them that feels right when I use them. Now, you do need to have a certain level of developed mouse control, especially for the hard pad, but they aren't the fastest pads on the market. Having tested the SkyPad, and of course I have the Vancer Ace here, they are slower than your typical hard pads, so there's a kind of characteristic of a hybrid pad built into both of these. Now, we're going to go into some comparisons with two pads I think that will be interesting, so you can kind of get a better idea of where these sit. Okay, first of all, we have the Lethal Gaming Gear Mercury here. I brought this out because this is I don't want to say traditional because it's a great pad, but it's a traditional hybrid pad, and this is the fastest pad that Lethal Gaming Gear makes. Now, in comparison, the hard pad itself here actually is a little bit faster than the Mercury because, again, going back to that floating effect, probably because of those micro dots, it is a tad bit faster in terms of its glide characteristics, but similar enough. The G-Cloth, though, again, being a hard surface, surprisingly has better stopping power than the Mercury, even though, again, this is only 2 millimeters thin, and the Mercury is, I believe, 4, could be wrong, 3 or 4 millimeters, but again, something you would expect. Plus, it's a little bit more plushy just in general, so it kind of sits in between here. But again, I brought it out because it's not, these pads aren't abnormally fast. They don't have bad control, even though they are weird or unique surfaces compared to something more traditional like the Mercury. Okay, now we have the Vancer Ace. This is another hard pad I have in my collection. There is a review. I'll post the link over here that you can watch on this specifically, but this is a hard pad with a totally unique surface. It is a kind of plastic film, rainbow film they call it, but again, watch the video for more on that. Again, I brought it out because it is quote unquote a hard pad, and it's the best comparison I have. The Vancer Ace really is quite a bit faster than both of these. It's a lot smoother. There is really no texture involved in this pad at all, and has the least amount of stopping power. This is a speed pad like no other. If you want speed, if you want complete freedom, akin to even a SkyPad is what I compared it to, this is the closest you're probably going to get in a kind of standard pad or some sort of hard pad alternative to the SkyPad. Again, this really is just a demonstration of, don't always look at a pad and say, oh, it has this type of surface, it's a hard surface, it's going to be too fast for me, because the way surfaces are manufactured, the material choices, all three of these pads are completely different, but they're all considered hard pads. But at the end of the day, the question is going to be, are they worth it? Are they worth the asking price to buy these? At $50 to $70 before shipping and duties, that's the kind of domestic pricing On eBay, they're pretty much close to, or it's at times over $100, but let's just call it what it is, about $100 for these mouse pads. It's a lot to ask, especially for a mouse pad. Now, again, I did receive these free of charge for review. So, Lemonade, would you have bought these with your own money? And I have to say, yes. I love them. They are truly unique. You can feel the craftsmanship. Their surfaces are unlike any I have used. Their manufacturing process is unique to them. And I'd also add they pay their employees fairly, unlike others, which I respect. I genuinely feel a certain proudness when I put them on my desk. And I know that may sound lame as hell, but there is a feeling of respect for doing something different in this market. Mouse pads are kind of sometimes stale, and XTEN have really done something phenomenal with all of their mouse pads. Their story, their fit and finish and presentation, from the packaging to the product to their website to their support for esports teams. It's just a cohesive message, and you gotta love it. If you want great performance, maybe you're an enthusiast, maybe you're both, you will definitely be happy with your purchase. All my socials are down below, along with any affiliate links and discount codes. There are none, unfortunately, for these pads. On that note, if you had a good time with me today, likes and subs are always appreciated. Leave a comment down below and let me know your thoughts. But until the next Fresh Squeeze video, stay thirsty, folks.